Go.
Our mission, Helping Parents Heal, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting parents whose children have passed. Through support and resources offered, we aspire to help individuals become shining light parents, meaning a shift from a state of emotional heaviness to one of hopefulness and greater peace of mind. Helping Parents Heal goes a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and afterlife evidence in a non-dogmatic way. Helping Parents Heal affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and encourage open dialogue. Attendance at this meeting is voluntary. We hope that participants will learn from and share with each other. Discussions here are confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Zoom meetings run by leadership are not confidential. These meetings typically feature guest presenters and are posted on YouTube so that affiliate members worldwide can watch and benefit. Neither type of Helping Parents Heal meeting is designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers, allowing parents to learn about many possible ways to heal. This includes presenters covering progressive topics such as afterlife evidence and connecting with children who pass. The views expressed by our guest speakers may or may not reflect the opinions of Helping Parents Heal leaders and members, so we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad you're here this evening.
Yes, we're so glad that you're here. And we're again thrilled to have Rob Schwartz and Liesel Fricke here with us this evening as well. I have their bios, so I'm going to go ahead and read them. And you're going to have such a wonderful evening with us. I'm thrilled again that Liesel is going to be doing a guided meditation as well. So let's go ahead and read the bio first. And again, you're really in for a treat because soul planning is something that is sometimes hard to wrap our heads around, the fact that we might have planned all of this before we ever came here. But I can say that this is one of the tools that's helped me the most on my healing journey. Just knowing that all of this was planned by us and by our kids before we ever got here, and that everything that we're doing now is to help us learn and to love everyone here on earth even more. So especially in this difficult time, I think that this is a wonderful tool for everyone to be able to move forward and heal. Rob Schwartz is a hypnotist who offers Between Lives Soul Regressions to help people heal and understand their life plan. In a Between Life Soul Regression, you can speak directly with a council of elders, wise, loving, and highly evolved beings who can tell you what you planned for your current lifetime and why, how well you're fulfilling the plan, and how you may better fulfill your plan. Rob's first book, Your Soul's Plan, Discovering the Real Meaning of the Life You Planned Before You Were Born, explores the pre-birth planning of physical illness, having disabled children, deafness, blindness, drug addiction, alcoholism, the death of a loved one, and accidents. His second book, Your Soul's Gift, The Healing Power of the Life You Planned Before You Were Born, explores the pre-birth planning of spiritual awakening, miscarriage, abortion, suicide, caregiving, sexuality, adoption, having pets, poverty, mental illness, and other life challenges and experiences. Rob's books have been translated into 25 languages. He teaches internationally on the subject of pre-birth planning at such venues as the United Nations, Kripalu, 1440 Multiversity, and Hollyhock. For more information, please visit him online at www.yoursoulsplan.com. And for Liesel, who's joining in this evening, she helps people all over the world transform their consciousness and lives through the workshops she co-teaches with her husband, Robert Schwartz. Liesel understands firsthand the powerful mechanism of transformation that intense life challenges can be when we allow them to crack us open. In response to her own intense struggles with severe obsessive compulsive disorder and depression, Liesel opened and surrendered to the depths of her being. The spiritual opening that followed led her to the capacity of connecting with the unity of with unity consciousness, oneness, and the loving, wise beings that reside in this state of consciousness, who she and Rob affectionately call the beings of light. It is Liesel's highest priority to share the profound love and wisdom of these highly evolved light beings with humanity in the messages, teachings, and meditation she channels. She and Rob are thrilled to be currently working on a book based on many of the channelings. They are excited to share with the world the powerful love and insight that emerges from the sacred internal and eternal space where we are all one. It is in this oneness field within that we can all find the truth of who we are as infinite, unbounded love. And I am sorry, I need to get new glasses, so this wasn't so good, but please join me and Irene in welcoming Rob Schwartz and Liesel Fricke. Welcome, Rob and Liesel.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Wave if you can hear us, please. Okay, very good. Well, I will just start by turning things over to my wife, Liesel, and she's going to channel a meditation for you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Just all you beautiful beings out there. Thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight and being a part of this, really this collective field that we're going to generate here tonight. Regardless of what you get out of this personally, you'll have done an act of service to the world, humanity, and Mother Gaia by being a part of this collective field where we're going to bring in higher vibrational energies. So just get comfortable. And if it's safe to do so, you can gently close your eyes. And just become aware of your breathing, of the simple in-breath, followed by the out-breath. Just a beautiful tide or rhythm of in, followed by out. And on that in-breath, just allowing in peace and relaxation. And on that out breath, just letting go of any and all tension. Breathing in this now moment. And breathing out all past and future. Allowing yourself to truly be here now. In the simplicity of what is. In the simplicity of your being. And just breathing out all commotion, all the lingering thoughts and energies and emotions of the day. Just letting them go on the exhale. And just breathing in simple, profound truth of I am. That is what we all have fundamentally, is the truth that we are awareness itself. Consciousness. And we're so busy conflating our sense of self with the content of our experience, be it thoughts, emotions, sensations, that it covers up and masks the real truth of who and what we are, which is fundamental awareness. And there's not really my fundamental awareness and your fundamental awareness. There is simply fundamental awareness. This one field, this one cohesive union of love and light energy that we all fundamentally are. This love and light energy where all beings reside, where all beings live eternally. Because this awareness that you fundamentally are, this awareness that every being fundamentally is, this awareness that is the substrate of every form, every object. This awareness, this substrate, this stuff of the universe precedes even time and space. It is fundamental to time and space. And therefore needs absolutely nothing in order to exist. You, as this awareness, existed before time even existed, before there were even objects or bodies appearing in space and time, before there was the possibility of perceiving a you and an other in the form of your body and someone else's body. You have always been this one field of awareness, this one beingness. And in this lies your true safety and comfort. For nothing that is of this field can ever truly die. And the joyous news is that everything is of this field. You are always in perfect union with the entirety of this field, including all that you have ever loved, all who you have ever loved, all who you will love in the future, all who you have loved in the past, in this lifetime and any other lifetime. In this lies your salvation. For no one and nothing can ever be lost. It can only seem to change form. But this form itself is actually illusory in nature. Like a screen projection. Or hologram. Which is not really truly solid. And the substance that makes it up, the substance of the projection itself, is this awareness, this consciousness. So just as you have light that is cast upon a screen and it forms an image in a movie theater, you are the energy of the light itself, not the image that is ultimately seen on the screen. That's a kind of aftermath. You are the light, the consciousness, the love, all these words that can point to something which can never be encapsulated in words. You are that which cannot be fully named and simply is. And as such, you are us. You are the most enlightened being ever born. You are the brightest of angels. You shine with the brilliance of every sage that has ever walked the earth. Because you are one with that very same consciousness. And so you are invited to rest more and more deeply in your heart space. More and more deeply in the sense of your fundamental beingness, in your sense of I am, without something that follows that. And holding that sense of I am in your heart, that sense of fundamental here-ness, now-ness, gently begin coming back. Gently begin opening your eyes, coming back fully into the room, aware of your surroundings, fully awake, conscious and clear, and ready to share in this time we get to have with one another.
So thank you, Liesel. Thank you, beings of light. The beings of light are the collective consciousness that Liesel just channeled. The perspective they just articulated in that guided meditation is non-dual or non-duality. If you haven't heard those terms before, you might want to Google them. You'll find an infinite amount of material to read about it. Non-dual means not two. In other words, as they said, there's just one vibratory field in existence. And we are, you are that field. Each one of us is. I want to start by sharing my background with you and how I came to do the very unusual work I do. And then I'll tell you what I found in the research for the 3 books. And then I'll turn it back to you. Okay. And then we'll have time for question and answer. So back in 2003, I was self-employed as a marketing and communications consultant, basically doing different kinds of corporate writing. I did not enjoy this work at all. It was deeply unfulfilling. And perhaps more to the point, I had this nagging sense that I had come to Earth to do something quite specific that I wasn't doing. And that really disturbed me. But I didn't know what this thing was, and I didn't know how to figure out what it was. So I started by doing very conventional things to resolve what was really an existential crisis. And I went to my friends and family and I said, I'm really unhappy doing this corporate work. What do you think I should do with my life? That is a really bad question to ask another person. And the answers were just not helpful at all. And then I went for career counseling and I took that Myers-Briggs inventory, which is actually a really worthwhile exercise. And it had interesting insights, but ultimately it didn't tell me what to do with my life, which was what I was looking for. And then I thought, well, nothing that I'm doing is really working here. I should think outside the box. What would that be? And then an idea came to me, go see a psychic medium. At that point in my life, I wasn't sure if I believed in mediumship, and I had certainly never been to a medium, but nothing else was working. And so I thought, well, why not? I'll invest an hour of my time. I'll give this a try. It can't do any harm. So I did that on May 7, 2003. And the reason I remember that date is that this was the day on which my life changed. The medium started the session by saying, your spirit guides are here. And I said, what is a spirit guide? I mean, I never even heard the term before. So she explained that. And then she said, your guides would like to speak directly with you. And she started to channel them. The first thing they said right out of the box was, you planned your life, including your biggest challenges, before you were born. And I just shook my head and I said, well, why in the world would I have done that? They said, you did this for purposes of spiritual growth. Now, coming as I did from a very conventional background, I probably would have just dismissed this as some kind of hallucination on my part, except that the guides then launched into this very lengthy monologue in which they went through all of my challenges one by one and told me why I had planned them. And what was remarkable about this is that I hadn't told the medium anything about myself before the session, nor did I tell the guides anything about myself during the session. So these beings knew literally everything about me without me saying a single word. And that will really get your attention. So by the time this was over, my worldview was just blown wide open. And in the weeks after that session, I thought about this pre-birth planning perspective constantly. The effect that it had on me was that it created a deep healing, because it allowed me for the first time to see deeper meaning and purpose in very difficult experiences that previously had appeared not to have any deeper meaning or purpose. And I think suffering that appears to have no deeper meaning or purpose is by far the worst kind of suffering. So this healing made me think, well, if this pre-birth planning perspective can be this helpful to me, then surely it can create a similar kind of healing for other people. And that was when I first started to think about writing a book about the subject. Then, just a matter of weeks after the session with the medium, I was fortunate enough to be introduced to a woman who has the ability to go into trance and channel her higher self, her soul. So at this point, I had started to think about writing a book on the subject, and I told her that. And I said, may I speak with your soul about pre-birth planning? And fortunately, she said yes. We ended up getting together 5 times for a total of about 15 hours. And in this 15 hours of channeling, this enormous volume of information came forward that verified everything my guides had said through the medium, but then expanded upon it greatly. So her soul told me in detail how pre-birth planning works, which challenges had been discussed for her, which ones had been chosen and why, which ones had been chosen and why had not been chosen and why not. And again, it's just a huge volume of information that came forward that in many ways serves as the foundation for all 3 books that I went on to write. And then right about the same time, the most important and impactful event of all, I was home in my apartment in Chicago, Illinois, where I lived at the time. It was a weekday afternoon. I was just having an average work day, and I decided to take a break and go for a walk. So I'm walking down the sidewalk, and all of a sudden, every time I saw another person, this feeling of pure, overwhelming, unconditional love for that person washed over me. And I use words like pure and unconditional. I could say divine or transcendent. It doesn't really matter which words I use. None of them even come close to describing the power, the strength, the purity of this unconditional love. It was not a human love. It truly was a transcendent kind of love. I remember the experience very clearly because the first person I saw when this started to happen was a cab driver. This gentleman was just sitting behind the wheel of his cab, waiting for a customer to come along. And I looked at him. Of course, he was a total stranger to me. I just felt this pure, overwhelming, unconditional love for him. And then I looked up and I saw a man's barber shop on the corner. I looked through the window and I saw the barber cutting a customer's hair. Again, 2 total strangers, but as I looked at them, there again was this pure, overwhelming, unconditional love. And then I turned around and I saw a young woman, a mother, pushing an infant in a stroller down the sidewalk. And again, as I looked at them, there was just pure, overwhelming, unconditional love. Everywhere I looked, every time I saw another person, that kind of love flowed over me, washed over me. And as this was happening, I was caused to know, you could say that I was caused to know, that we as souls are made literally from this energy of unconditional love. I got that message loud and clear. What I didn't know at the time was why this experience was happening. That actually became clear a couple of years later. By that time, I had looked at a lot of people's pre-birth plans for my first book. And what I found in every case, no exceptions, no matter what was being planned, no matter how difficult it was, the plan was always based on complete unconditional love for every single person involved. And then I realized, aha, that experience walking down the sidewalk a couple of years ago, that was gifted to me so that when I found this result in my research, I would be absolutely certain that what I was finding was true. And this is why I can sit before you tonight and say to you with total confidence and complete certainty that I believe that we as souls are made literally from the energy of unconditional love. That was my experience walking down the street that day. So the combination of those 3 things, the session with the medium, the woman's channeling of her soul, and this experience of divine unconditional love for all people, the combination of those 3 things got me to say, okay, I'm leaving the corporate world and I will attempt to write a book about how we plan our challenges before we're born. And I spent the next 3 years on a full-time basis doing that. And that book came out originally self-published as Courageous Souls, and then a publisher picked it up and retitled it as Your Soul's Plan. What I do in that book and in the subsequent 2 books is basically go through every major common life challenge we face in the Earth School. And in case study format, I explore why a particular individual planned that very difficult experience before birth. So the intentions of the work are to help people awaken, by which I mean come into some awareness that you're more than your body, your thoughts, and your feelings, that you are in fact an eternal, infinite soul. Another intention is to help people heal from their most difficult challenges. And another intention is to help people see the deeper spiritual meaning and purpose of those challenges. That's essentially what I was trying to do. Now, let me tell you what I found in the research for the books as to why we plan big challenges before we're born. And I'll start with a more left brain analytic explanation, and then I'll pivot into a more heart-based explanation. So in researching many pre-birth plans, I found 5 main reasons why we plan big challenges before we're born. The first is balancing and releasing karma. Balancing and releasing karma are not the same thing. Balancing karma means you plan to have a new experience that energetically offsets a previous experience. Releasing karma means you heal the underlying tendency that created the karma in the first place. In other words, if all you do is balance karma without also releasing it, you'll just end up recreating the same karma over and over again. An example of balancing karma would be 2 people who had a past life together in which one was ill and the other was that person's caregiver. When those 2 people transition back into spirit at the end of that incarnation, they'll have a life review, as we always do, and they'll see the caregiving relationship portrayed in the life review. When they see this, they may or may not feel complete with the caregiving experience. If they feel complete with it, then as I understand it, there is no karma, and they'll just go on to plan something entirely new. But if one or both of them, for any reason, feel incomplete with the experience, the feeling of incompletion is the karma. So let's say they feel that way. How do they balance the karma? Well, the easiest thing to do in that case is just trade places. The one who was ill is likely to plan to be a caregiver, and the one who was the caregiver is likely to plan the challenge of physical illness. What makes all of this so interesting and so challenging, I think, is that when those 2 souls get back into body, they won't remember the pre-birth plan just as the rest of us don't. So the challenge becomes, in my opinion, how do we give and receive love unconditionally in these very difficult circumstances of self-induced amnesia? And when I talk about giving and receiving love unconditionally, you know, the flow of love in the world is circular in nature. If you cut that circle in half, half the circle is giving love to other people. We all believe this is a good thing to do, and we all try to do that. But it's actually only half the circle. The other half of that circle is receiving love from other people. So if you are someone who does not allow others to give love to you, you're actually blocking the flow of love in the world just as effectively as if you never give love to other people. And I think this is particularly relevant to a caregiving situation because, in my view, it's incumbent upon the one who is ill to receive love from the caregiver. But that's reason number 1 for planning big challenges before we're born, balancing and releasing karma. The second reason I found for doing this is healing. And I'll give you an example from Your Soul's Plan. There's a story in there about a soul who plans before birth to be born completely deaf in both ears. And we actually went into the pre-birth planning session in which this experience of deafness was decided upon. And we heard the conversation that she had with her spirit guide. And what emerges from this conversation is that in the lifetime immediately prior to this one, she had the same mother she has in this lifetime. And in that past life, when she was a little girl, she heard the mother shot to death by the mother's boyfriend. Now, she didn't actually witness the murder, but she heard the gunshots that led to her mother's death. She would expect she was quite traumatized by that, so much so that it led to suicide later in that lifetime. So her name is Penelope. So Penelope returned to spirit from that incarnation with what you could call an energy of unhealed trauma, which now has to be healed. In the pre-birth planning session, her spirit guide says to her, "My dear, would you prefer to be born deaf so that no similar trauma will happen to you again, and so that you can complete your healing from the last lifetime?" And she says, "Yes, that is what I want and what I wish to do." And then what follows is a fascinating dialogue between her and her guide in which they work out the details of the deafness. That's reason number 2 for planning big challenges, healing. The third reason is service to others. We've just heard in the guided meditation a reference to oneness. And if you read spiritual or metaphysical literature, you've probably seen many references to oneness or unity consciousness. This is the idea, again, that there's actually only one being in existence in the entire universe. And it's you, it's me, it's all of us. Each one of us is an individualized expression of the one. As I understand it, the desire to be of service to others, which is a major component of every single pre-birth plan I've ever looked at, and a major reason for planning life challenges, it's a natural expression of oneness consciousness. In other words, let's say that you and I are back on the other side, where oneness consciousness is our natural state. It's not a state of separation the way it is here. And you are planning an incarnation, and you sense, you actually experience that I am literally you. Well, then, of course, you will want to be of service to me in your upcoming lifetime. And if I'm planning an incarnation and I experience that you are literally me, then of course I will want to be of service to you. So again, this orientation of service to others, which is in everybody's pre-birth plan that I've ever looked at, there are no exceptions that I've ever seen to that. It's a natural expression of oneness consciousness, which is our natural state of consciousness when we're home on the other side. That's the third reason. The fourth is experiencing contrast. And I'll have to explain what this means. I shared with you my experience of divine unconditional love as I was walking down the street that day in 2003. As I understand it, the non-physical realm we come from is a realm of complete unconditional love. So if we are made from the energy of unconditional love, which was my experience that day, and if we're in this realm of only unconditional love, that means that we experience no contrast to ourselves, which in turn means we don't fully understand or appreciate what it means to be a being made from the energy of unconditional love. We just don't fully know who or what we are. So what I think the soul is doing here on the physical plane is that we have come for the experience of the contrast, the not love, so to speak, which we would all agree there's a lot of. Because through the experience of the not love, by the time you go home at the end of a lifetime, you understand much more deeply what unconditional love really and truly is. You're probably familiar with the Conversation with God books by Neale Donald Walsch. In those books, in one of his discussions with God, the subject of experience, this kind of contrast comes up. And God asks Neale to explain it using the analogy of the white room, which goes like this. Imagine that you are a white being in a white room. So you're white, the ceiling is white, the floor is white, all the walls around you are white. Everything in the room is white, including you. Now, if you are such a being in such a room, how do you know that you're white? The answer is you actually don't. And in fact, you can't until you experience something that is other than white. Then, once you've had that experience, then you understand much more deeply what it means to be a white being in a white room. This, I think, is what we were doing here on Earth and why we planned big challenges for ourselves. We are love. We are in a realm that is only love. We therefore experience no contrast to ourselves. We therefore don't fully understand or appreciate who or what we are. And so we come for the contrast, the not love, because by the time we go home at the end of a lifetime, that contrast leads to a much more profound self-knowing. That's reason number 4, contrast. And the last reason, number 5, really is a subset of number 2, healing, but it's so important and so common, I like to break it out as a separate item of its own. And that is healing or correcting false feelings or false beliefs about oneself. And I'll explain how this works. Almost everybody has had at least one past life, and usually many, in which you had certain experiences that caused you to pick up a false feeling or false belief about yourself. By false, I mean false from the perspective of your soul. 2 of the most common false beliefs or feelings about self are 1, that one is powerless, and 2, that one is unworthy or perhaps even worthless. Your soul knows that those things are simply not true. And so to your soul, if you feel or believe that about yourself, it feels discordant, and your soul will want you to heal or clear or release the false feeling or the false belief. So how do you do that? Well, here in the Earth School, in the third dimension, what will happen is you will end up drawing or magnetizing to yourself experiences that seem on the surface to confirm the false feeling or false belief. This is the fundamental nature of reality in the Earth School. It's set up to mirror you back to you so that you can find out what lies within your consciousness, even if it's subconscious. And if there's something there that's in need of healing or clearing or release, if there's something that's discordant to your soul, it will come to the light of conscious awareness where you can then set about healing or releasing it. So I realize that what I have just described there might sound harsh and perhaps even punitive, but I can assure you that is not the intention of the universe. The universe is loving. And what it's trying to do in its infinite love for you is mirror you back to you so that you find out what is within you. And if there's something there that's false and is in need of healing, you'll become aware of it and you can heal it. That's reason number 5, healing or correcting false feelings or beliefs about oneself. Now, we could spend a lot of time talking about any one of those. And if we did that, at the end of that conversation, you might very well say something to me like, okay, Rob, I can understand now why some souls would plan mild or moderate challenges. That now makes sense. But I just cannot wrap my mind around the idea that I would have planned to lose a child. That's too much suffering. It's too extreme. I just cannot wrap my mind around that. And if you were to put it to me that way, you would actually be entirely correct. You aren't going to be able to wrap a human mind around that kind of concept because a human mind would never make that kind of decision. When I say human mind, I'm talking here about the ego mind. How does the ego make a decision? Well, essentially, it does a cost-benefit analysis. What is this going to cost me? What will I get out of it? And will it be worth it? That is not how pre-birth planning is done. There are certainly very practical considerations, and I just listed 5 of those. But pre-birth planning is not done from the ego mind. It's done with and from and through the heart. The heart is your operating system on the other side. For most people, it's the ego mind while they're here in body, at this point in human evolution anyway. But that's not the case on the other side. Your operating system is the heart. And the heart wants one thing and one thing only, and that is to give and receive love fully and freely. So if you're back on the other side, and let's say another member of your soul group who you know well, who you have worked with in multiple past lives, and there's a tremendous amount of mutual love between the two of you. This other soul comes to you and says, I'm planning a short incarnation on Earth, and then explains why. And I would be honored if you would be the father or the mother who shepherds me through what is going to be, in all likelihood, a very short experience. Your response, coming again from the heart, not from the ego, your response is going to be, yes, of course. I love you dearly, and if this is what you want and need from me, then of course the answer is yes. I will be the mother or the father who will love and guide you through whatever time you choose to spend on Earth. I'm honored that you have asked me, and I would be honored and delighted to play this role for you. That's primarily how a decision like that gets made. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, if you still can't believe that you would ever make a decision like that, keep in mind that your perspective when you're on the other side is very different than your perspective when you're here in body. One of the main differences is that from the non-physical vantage point, you are acutely aware of how very brief a lifetime is. It's not going to feel that way when you're here in body, especially if you're suffering. We all know that. But from the non-physical vantage point, an incarnation is so brief, it's like a clap of thunder. It's here and it's gone in an instant. Another big difference in perspective is that when you are in the non-physical, you are very much aware of the fact that nobody is permanently harmed by anything that happens here. You may or may not have this awareness while you're in body, but you do have that awareness when you're home on the other side. And the last key difference in perspective is that from the non-physical vantage point, you know, you are absolutely certain that all the healing, expansion, increased capacity to give and receive love, all the wisdom that comes out of an incarnation, you know that this will become part of you now for literally all eternity. You may or may not know that when you're in body, but you do know that when you're planning a lifetime. So from that perspective, that life is actually very brief. Nobody is permanently harmed by anything that happens here. And yet the healing, the increased capacity to love, the wisdom become part of you literally for all eternity. From that perspective, it actually does make a lot of sense that a soul would plan something as painful as losing a child. Not every soul would plan that, but many souls would choose to do that. And the souls who choose to do that are tremendously, tremendously courageous. This is why my first book was originally titled Courageous Souls. That title was not actually a reference to the soul. It was a reference to each one of you and every person who is in a body on planet Earth. It takes tremendous, tremendous courage to plan an incarnation here, and even more courage to execute the pre-birth plan once you're here in body. So that's basically what I wanted to share with you.
That was absolutely wonderful to be able to listen to. And first, I want to just also say, Liesel, that was such a beautiful meditation. It was almost difficult to find any words to say after it because it was so calming and beautiful. We have some questions, and I'd like to be able to ask them if possible. But I just want everyone to know that again, this is such a gentle way of thinking when you start realizing that everything that's happening to us here is all about love. Everything, every single thing that we do is about love. And this is just our Earth School, as Rob was saying. It's our kids are home. They're happy, healthy, and whole. And we're still learning stuff. We got stuff to learn here, which is sometimes very difficult. And as Rob says, this is the most difficult place to be. And the things that we're doing, this courageous path that all of us have chosen, is one of the most difficult to live. But we do have a question from Laura that you answered about why we would choose to have a child pass in this lifetime. She's also asking if we ever repeat lifetimes, and if so, why would we do that? Is that something that you've heard of before, that people repeat the same lifetime if maybe they haven't learned what they needed to from this life?
By repeat lifetime, does she mean work on the same lessons or literally the same life?
I would assume that she's talking about working on the same lessons, but I don't know. She doesn't specify, but I would think that some.
If it's a reference to working on the same lessons, yes, people do that all the time. That's the norm. So what I see in my work, and this comes from doing the Between Lives Soul Regressions, which I'll talk more about in a minute. People have what I call an arc of lives. That is a set of lives in which you work on the same underlying lessons. You don't learn difficult lessons just in one incarnation. Hopefully over this arc of lives, there's more or less steady progress. And really, you can go as deep as you want with just about any lesson you're working on. There's not a required curriculum that you have to master in the Earth School. You will look at your progress in the life review, and you might say, well, I just finished a number of lives where I was focused on compassion, for example. And I know there's a lot more I could learn about compassion, but I feel more or less complete with that. I think I'd like to go on and study something else. Or you might have the opposite reaction and say, you know, I've come a long way with compassion, but I want to go deeper. Let's continue to work on compassion in the next lifetime. So the choice is entirely up to you. It's a matter of personal preference. How deep do you want to go with a particular lesson? You get a lot of very wise counsel from your guides, angels, ascended masters, higher self, and so forth. But it's really up to you.
That's a beautiful way of saying that. And we're in the driver's seat, which is an exciting thing to note, too. We are the ones who decide everything that we need to with the help of our guides. Rich is saying, is there a way you can tell who was in your soul group in past lives? Is that something that you could maybe talk about?
Well, there's a pretty high likelihood that anybody who's playing a really significant role in your life is a member of your soul group. Members of your nuclear family, close friends, close work colleagues, and so forth. And then there's another type of relationship to look for. There's sometimes called a bump contract. And this is a situation in which you agree with somebody before you incarnate that if you get off course, you're not learning what you came to learn or doing what you came to do, this other person is going to come along and quote unquote bump you back onto the track that you wanted to be on. The way you know that you have a bump contract with someone, it's usually a very brief but very intense relationship that has a huge impact on the direction of your life. And that kind of contract would be with a member of your soul group.
That's fascinating. So sometimes it's someone who we don't necessarily get along with and who is teaching us something that we don't even realize we need to know. We do in a soul level, but we don't
Right.
here in the real world, and so in the unreal world, the world that we're living in right now. So it is nice to know about those bump contracts as well. Kathleen is saying, could we choose to not reincarnate?
You can, but remember, your perspective is quite different when you're on the other side. So if you have a life review and you feel incomplete with anything for any reason, most likely you will plan something to complete whatever it is that you were working on.
Okay, great. And Robin is asking, is there ever a death that was a mistake, not an exit point?
I can't say that I have researched death enough to answer definitively, but I have not seen anything like that.
Never seen that. That's really reassuring to hear. Brooke is saying, on the other side, why would we say okay to be a parent, okay, and have a child pass? So this is similar to, I think she probably wrote this before you were talking about it just a few minutes ago. And actually, I realize we're getting close to the time, but I wanted to ask you about past life regressions and between lives regressions as well, so that people can know more about that and what you do with those as well.
Yeah, so the form of hypnosis that I specialize in is called a BLSR, which stands for Between Lives Soul Regression. It's a long session, 2 hours if it's in English alone. If there's a translator, it usually runs about 3 hours. And we start with some preliminary steps to help you relax physically and mentally. And then I guide the person into a past life. It's almost always a past life that had a big impact on the plans for the current lifetime, or is in some other way thematically related to the current lifetime. You experience several different scenes in the past life, the last of which is the death scene. The part of your consciousness that's having the experience leaves the body in the death scene in the past life and transitions back to the other side, which sometimes strikes people as an ominous prospect, but there's actually nothing to it. It's very easy and safe and gentle. When you get back to the other side, most likely one of your guides or more than one of your guides will greet you. They'll tell you what's important to know about the past life, how it's relevant to the current lifetime. And then they'll take you to what is called your Council of Elders. Those are the beings who oversee your personal evolution, and they know literally everything about you, everything about the plans for the current life, every past life you've had, every experience you've ever had, physical or non-physical. So when you get to the council, you can ask literally any question on any subject and get an answer. Something else you can do is ask them to bring into your meeting any loved ones who have transitioned who you would like to speak with directly. So that could be children, It could be anybody else, parents, siblings. Frequently, people will have deceased pets come into the meeting with the council. And you can talk with your pets in spirit just as easily as you can talk with another person. So if you have any questions at all about why did something happen, what is the deeper meaning, how do I heal from it, where do I go from here, these are the kinds of questions the council love to answer. We do the Between Lives regressions both as private sessions and in online workshops. It works just as well as a group, and it's less expensive that way. And we actually have a permanent discount code for Helping Parents Heal members, which is Awaken 20. And Awaken is in all capital letters. If you register for a private session or one of the online workshops, in the box for a coupon code, just type in Awaken 20 in all caps. That takes 20% off the session or the workshop. And this is a permanent offer for Helping Parents Heal members. It does not expire at any time. So the website is yoursoulsplan.com. If you click on sessions in the main menu, you'll come to the page about the regressions. There's actually a 1-hour video there where you can see a Between Lives Soul Regression. And if you click on events in the main menu, you'll see the upcoming schedule. There's a Between Lives Regression workshop in September and another one in October.
Do you also want to talk about, or I'm happy to the upcoming shift course, because there's the contact a deceased loved one regression that's a part of that.
That's true. Why don't you share?
Okay. So we're coming up starting on, I believe, starting on the first Monday in August. We're teaching a 7-week course at 7 o'clock at night Eastern. Through the Shift Network, all about pre-birth planning, all about, awakening to your pre-birth plan and learning, about your pre-birth plan, etc. And one of the great things about this course is it's recorded. So if you can't make the actual time frame, you can also always watch it in the recording. But the reason why it might be of particular interest to everyone here is that I believe it's in module 5 of that is the contact a deceased loved one regression. And you want to speak a little bit more about that actual regression?
Yeah, this is really the only other type of hypnotic regression that I do. It's much shorter than the Between Lives. Usually it takes about 40-45 minutes. And the sole intention is to bring you into contact with one or more loved ones who have transitioned back to the other side. Again, including pets. People make contact with pets just as often as they contact other people. And the contact can come in different forms. If the form the contact takes is verbal or telepathic, that gives you an opportunity to ask questions about your life plan with them.
Yeah. And another thing that's really a powerful part of that course will be in module 2, which is the Divine Virtues exercise. And this is just an amazing exercise that Rob developed over his years of looking at pre-birth plans to help ascertain the underlying reason for people's life challenges. Basically the divine virtues that people are looking to cultivate by choosing different life challenges. Do you want to explain a little more about the divine virtues exercise?
Yeah, the way that developed was that, in researching people's plans for the 3 books, I eavesdropped, so to speak, on many pre-birth planning sessions. And I noticed over a period of time that when very difficult challenges were being planned, a lot of the discussion revolved around a desire to cultivate certain qualities that are very important to the soul. And I gave those qualities the name Divine Virtues. And over a period of time, put together a list of the ones that came up the most often in people's pre-birth planning sessions. I think there's now 28 or 29 on the list. It's things like compassion, unconditional love, patience, empathy, faith, trust, and so on. The average person is working on 2 or 3. Sometimes, rarely, a person is working on 4 or 5. Once you know which virtues you're working on, which is what the exercise will do for you, that's really valuable information to have because it shows you the underlying spiritual meaning and purpose of previous challenges. But just as important, when a new challenge comes along, then instead of feeling victimized or seeing it as pointless suffering, you just say to yourself, okay, I know that I'm in this incarnation to cultivate and express this virtue, and that virtue. Knowing that, how do I work with this new challenge to do that? And so it has the effect of immediately assigning deeper meaning to a new challenge that otherwise might appear to be meaningless suffering. And once you know what the meaning is, you can learn the lessons in a much more conscious and much less painful manner.
Yeah, I've seen people, just really transform through this exercise, really go, oh my gosh, I did not realize the good that came out of, this otherwise seemingly terrible experience. And, I think that it gives people the opportunity to see something in this very, very concrete form, because it's kind of all mapped out for you in this matrix, and you can see number values like, oh my gosh, wow, I really did grow greatly in compassion through this gut-wrenching experience, but like, wow, I've really blossomed in that way. And you can have all that much more motivation to keep blossoming that virtue in your life, keep applying that embodiment of that virtue. So I think those two, there's a lot more to the course, but those two things are the things that are really jump out as things that might be relevant for people here. And we don't often do the contact a deceased loved one regression or the divine virtues exercise as part of a workshop. So it's kind of it's not an opportunity that comes along all the time.
By the way, the shift course is not up on the website. Yeah, we actually don't have the link from them. But if you sign up for the newsletter at yoursoulsplan.com, it'll be announced in there.
And I will say, if you want, and if you sign up for the newsletter, you should be able to be able to sign up for this as well. There's on July 16th at, I believe it's at 8:30 p.m. There's a broadcast of a free event that Rob and I are doing through the Shift Network, where you have an opportunity to do a meditation that was channeled by the beings of light that Rob leads. And we touch on a lot of different topics and stuff. And that event itself is free. So everyone is more than welcome to join in on that. And if you go on our website and sign up for our newsletter, then it'll become clear how to do that. I think it's probably also directly on the website page now, but I'm not entirely sure.
I'm not sure either, actually.
We don't do that. We don't do those sorts of things. We have a wonderful tech person and marketing person who handles all the tech stuff for us. It's not our thing.
Well, I just want to say that we always put something about what you're doing in our newsletter. So we'll have something for the July newsletter about August, but it might not be in time for the 16th. So that's good to know. Also, I just want to say that the divine virtues that you're talking about sounds a lot like our Tampa Helping Parents Heal group put together a list of silver linings when you have a child transition. So I think that that's a very similar kind of thing. They're beautiful, and there's a link to that on the front page of our website, in case anybody would like to read about that. And I also just wanted to say that I love the fact that you connect with pets as well when you're doing these past lives and between lives regressions. And I must say, my daughter did a past life regression and saw one of our pets, one of our very beloved pets, as a person sitting at a table in her family. So I thought that was fascinating. So they are part of our family, but this was a human person who was part of her family at that time. But I see that everyone in the chat box is talking about how wonderful this has been this evening. And it's really made a lot of people think, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I've been feeling all along, but I didn't know how to express it. So thank you for expressing it for us, both of you. And thank you for spending time with us this evening. And did you have anything else you wanted to say before we have everybody just sign off and say thank you?
Well, just thank you for what you're doing with helping parents heal. As you know, we're big supporters and big believers. And anytime somebody comes to me in a workshop or for a private session and mentions that they've lost a child, the first thing I say is you've got to get in touch with helping parents heal. So thank you for what you're doing.
That's so kind of you. And Irene, did you have something you wanted to say before
Just
we
thank
ask
you.
everybody?
This is just so wonderful. I mean, it's what's made the most sense to me since Carly's passing. It's brought me such comfort knowing that this is what I signed up for. So thank you.
Exactly.
Thanks
All
for
signed up.
and yeah, and Your Soul's Plan. It's one of the first books I read after Carly transitioned. So thank you.
Beautiful books. And thank you so much for being here. If everybody else would like to say thank
Yes,
you.
please unmute
and
and say thank you and good night and sign up for their newsletter.
Thank you.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Like this.
Liesel and
Good night,
Rob.
everybody.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Love you
Good night,
all.
everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.